Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating lesson from Crown and Cradles. We're going to unpack a huge, universal question. What is the absolute greatest legacy you can leave your kids? It's something every parent thinks about, right? Well, the source material we're looking at today offers a very specific, deeply traditional perspective on what actually prepares a child for the real world.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 6 key areas: the ultimate legacy, defining the fear of God, education versus godliness, a tale of two paths, biblical blueprints, and we'll wrap it all up with some practical lessons for parents. Let's get straight to it.
All right, part 1, the ultimate legacy. To kick things off, the text highlights a dilemma pretty much every loving parent faces. You know how it is. Parents work their tails off, day in and day out, to provide the best schools, a safe home, and financial stability. And hey, those things are incredibly important. But the author introduces a massive shift in perspective here. They argue that the ultimate legacy isn't what we leave for our kids, but what we leave in them. Because at the end of the day, earthly wealth can just vanish, but internal character, that sticks around.
Moving right along to part 2, defining the fear of God. Okay, so before we go any deeper, we really need to clarify what the author means by the fear of God, because modern audiences often get this totally wrong. People hear the word fear and instantly picture this constant trembling dread, but this lesson completely flips that on its head. It reframes this fear as a profoundly positive moral foundation. It's actually about reverence, love, respect, and just a sincere desire to do the right thing and please God. It's the ultimate bedrock for teaching honesty and self-control.
The author anchors this whole concept with a really famous verse from Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It basically establishes that if you want true, lasting knowledge, it absolutely has to start with this reverence. Without that starting point, any other wisdom you pick up is basically just built on sand.
Which brings us to part 3, education versus godliness.
Now, this is where the argument gets super interesting. The text weighs secular education directly against godliness. And to be clear, it's not bashing learning at all. Knowledge is definitely valued. But the distinction it makes is brilliant. Think of it like this. Education develops the mind, but godliness transforms the heart. Education teaches you how to earn a living, right? But the fear of God teaches you how to actually live.
If we look at the long game, education alone will give you intellectual chops, open up career doors, and yeah, it can definitely make you wealthy. But, and this is a big but, it cannot guarantee integrity or peace. Godliness, on the other hand, builds character and brings God's favor into your decision-making. The author makes a really compelling point here. Without solid character, the best education in the world can actually become a dangerous liability. Let's dive into part 4, a tale of two paths. To make these heavy concepts a bit more concrete, the source uses a fantastic analogy. Picture child A. Their parents spend a fortune on elite schools, the latest gadgets, you name it. But they completely skip the spiritual training. Zero moral anchor. So as this kid grows up, their intellect is off the charts, but their character is basically in free fall. They might start cheating, lying, and eventually cutting corners in business. Sure, they might get rich, but their life is just riddled with anxiety, broken relationships, or worse, major scandal. It perfectly tees up that hard-hitting question from the book of Mark. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? I mean, grabbing all the wealth and the degrees means literally nothing if you lose yourself in the process, right? It's just empty success.
Now flip the script and meet child B. This kid grows up in a super modest home. No elite, expensive schools here. But every single day, the family prays together and the child learns deep, unshakable honesty. Fast forward, and because of this rock-solid integrity, people just naturally trust him. The text argues that this kind of godly character acts like a total magnet for opportunity, opening doors that a fancy resume alone never could. It's a great reminder that true dependability can lift ordinary people to incredible heights.
Part 5, biblical blueprints for success.
The author points out that this child B scenario isn't just some nice hypothetical story. It's actually backed by historical figures from the Bible. Take Joseph, for example. He had the moral fiber to resist massive temptation, and that exact character trait eventually took him straight from a prison cell to the palace in Egypt. Or Daniel, who literally faced a death threat but refused to stop praying and wound up outranking all the wise men in Babylon. Then there's Timothy, whose entire legacy as a minister was built on his mother's spiritual training. The takeaway? Unwavering devotion attracts immense favor.
All right, round in the corner to part 6, practical lessons for parents.
So, how do we actually put this into practice in our own living rooms? The text drops some highly actionable steps here. It's about teaching your kids about God before the ways of the world, prioritizing daily family prayer, actually living the example yourself, and a huge one, celebrating their character way more than you celebrate their grades. The underlying message for families is super clear. Success without a spiritual core is just failure in disguise. As we wrap up this explainer, the author leaves us with a pretty stark warning. The world is obsessed with measuring success by diplomas, bank accounts, and social status. But the text argues that God measures it by faithfulness and obedience. There's a real danger today of obsessing over tutors and college funds while totally ignoring a kid's spiritual training. An educated child with no moral compass might shoot up the corporate ladder, but man, they're primed for a sudden fall. This all builds to one incredibly provocative final thought. We love to brag to our friends, saying things like, "Oh, my child goes to the absolute best school." But according to this lesson, heaven is asking a much more important question. Does your child know God? It's a total mic drop moment that really forces us to audit our own parenting metrics. What legacy are you truly prioritizing? Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating source material today.